Oliver was at his sire's manor, a secluded, resort-like private residence nestled among lush greenery. The atmosphere was serene, with the sounds of nature in the background. He stood in the grand study, looking out the window, lost in thought, as Nicholas entered the room.
What we discuss here should remain between us, Oliver.
Nicholas closed the door behind him.
Of course, Nick. What's on your mind?
I want to offer you an opportunity to go to a place where you can learn to practice the arcane arts, the Scholomance.
Arcane arts? What are you talking about?
Magic. I've kept my abilities hidden, but as my child and business partner, I see no reason to keep you in the dark any longer.
I never imagined. Why now?
I usually prefer to keep my cards close to my chest, Oliver, but now there is an opportunity. The Scholomance is an ancient school of magic in Transylvania. Only 10 students are enrolled at a time for a period of 7 years. I can secure you one of the spots that are about to open.
I don't know. I am not so sure I should leave the city right now.
I believe I can help you make up your mind. Let me share some hidden knowledge of our house. Holloway no longer teaches any of this, and it's rare for anyone to know anything about it nowadays. Some tidbits I learned from my sire, some are from my time at the school.
Oliver's curiosity was piqued.
All right, I'm listening.
Nicholas settled into a chair and motioned for Oliver to sit as well.
Our lineage, House Drakul, has roots that intertwine deeply with the Scholomance. It was founded centuries ago by a group of powerful Nosferatu from our house. But let's rewind back to the beginning, to the saga of Tiamat, the first vampire, and her quest for vengeance. Through us, her bloodline echoes to this day, as a warning against the darkness that lies within us all.
So far into the past? I thought you were going to sell me on the Scholomance.
We'll get there, don't worry. It all started in an ancient realm of Sumeria, where magic and mysticism intertwined with the forces of creation and chaos. There lived Apsu, a powerful mage, and his wife Tiamat, a sorceress of unrivaled beauty and strength. Together they ruled over the primordial waters, guardians of the cosmic balance. Apsu, with his mastery of the arcane arts, delved into the deepest mysteries of the universe, seeking to unlock the secrets of immortality and divine power. His ambition knew no bounds, and he hungered for knowledge that would elevate him above the mortal realm. But as Apsu delved deeper into the forbidden realms of magic, whispers of darkness crept into his heart. He plotted to claim dominion over his kind. Mortal mages were the unrivaled masters of the supernatural world at the time, and they were growing in power. Some were having designs on godhood itself and domain over the cosmos. Unbeknownst to Apsu, Tiamat, his beloved wife and partner, sensed the darkness growing within him. She pleaded with him to abandon his schemes and embrace the path of wisdom and enlightenment. But Apsu, consumed by his lust for power, refused to heed her warnings. In the depths of their palace beneath the waters, Apsu conspired with his fellow mages, plotting their conquest and destruction of those who resisted. But their plans were thwarted by Ea, their own son and a powerful mage in his own right. In a daring act of betrayal, Ea and his allies struck down Apsu in his sleep, ending his reign of tyranny before it could begin. Upon discovering her husband's fate, Tiamat was consumed by rage. Her heart shattered and her mind fractured as she beheld the lifeless form of her beloved Apsu. In her despair, she vowed vengeance upon those who had betrayed them, swearing to unleash chaos and destruction upon the guilty. Driven by grief and madness, Tiamat embarked on a quest to unlock the ultimate power of the forbidden arts, the gift of immortality. Forsaking her humanity and embracing darkness, she transformed into something else, the first of the Nosferatu. With newfound power coursing through her veins, she emerged from the shadows, her eyes burning with a hunger for vengeance. Apsu was considered the god of fresh water by mortals, the ether, the mana, the waters above. But Tiamat became the goddess of salt water, the blood within. When Tiamat returned to the world she left behind, her heart filled with fury. She devoured any who dared to stand in her way, and she was not alone. She had 10 founders of the other houses at her side, and together, they gorged themselves in the blood of mortal mages who were not smart enough to flee and hide. They started the reign of the Nosferatu. Each founder brought their chosen ones into the blood. Kings and queens were taken as familiars. For a time, vampires ruled unopposed over humanity, for the houses were at peace with one another, and no other creature dared to challenge their supremacy over the night. At that time, our house was known by the name of its founder, House Tiamat. Of course, this would not last forever. There would come a time when intrigue and strife divided the houses, and Nosferatu was set against Nosferatu. To make matters worse, the mages returned, led by a new and powerful champion, Marduk. From this moment on, mages and Nosferatu were at a relentless shadow war throughout the ages, taking turns at the top and bottom in a vicious cycle of violence. The specifics are very obscure. Not much knowledge from this age remains after the fall of the Tower of Babel and the disappearance of the founders.
If this knowledge is lost, how can you know it?
What is known is what was passed down by the handful of Nosferatu from each house that endured through the fall. The Babelites, as our kind calls them. Children of the founders who were walking in this age and survived into the next. All Nosferatu descend from one of these Babelites. They are the starters of the bloodlines inside each of the houses of the blood. They are the bridge between the legend of the founders and recorded Nosferatu history. There are 4 known Drakul Babelites: the Hydra, who is Tiamat's first child, a master of the demonic form and infamous for being the first Nosferatu to lose himself to the dragon and go mad. The Warden, who protected the domains of the house and learned from Tiamat to command power over their territory itself. The Wyvern Rider, who was the knight she sent against her enemies and was a master of imposing the demonic form over beasts and others. And finally, the Storm Dragon, who was the regent of their mother and performed the royal duties of the house. According to the genealogy our house keeps stored here in Dreadford, we are descendants from the Warden.
This is all so fascinating. I have never heard about a war between Nosferatu and mages. Is this still going on?
The war between mages and Nosferatu lasted for thousands of years, Oliver. But eventually, after the appearance of House Agnes, the mages noticed that the old ways were no longer being followed by Nosferatu. They saw an opening and sent an envoy, Mirrodin, or as people commonly call him nowadays, Merlin.
Merlin? The legendary wizard? What did he have to do with our house?
Mirrodin was instrumental in ending the war. He helped the Round Table be brought together, and with diplomacy, managed to broker peace between mages and Nosferatu. He and Carolus put an end to the conflict that started in ancient times. Mirrodin took an apprentice in the Round Table, the Paladin of House Drakul. The identity of this paladin is shrouded in mystery since the Round Table retreated into anonymity. But what we do know is that he, along with other students of Mirrodin, founded the Scholomance to preserve and pass on the secrets they learned from their distinguished teacher. Now it gets even more fascinating. The only child of the Paladin of House Drakul was a Nosferatu named Percival.
Percival? I heard that name before.
He was a knight, Oliver. It is told he is among the most noble and honorable of our kind, if a bit naive. He embarked on a quest for Carolus to find the Holy Grail.
And did he succeed?
There is much controversy around this subject. Percival had a journey fraught with dangers. Many knights perished in this quest. But with the last of his strength, Percival brought a squire, Francis Stephen, into the blood and entrusted what he found to him so he could return it to safety.
Oliver's eyes widened in realization.
Francis Stephen, our king.
Yes, Oliver. Francis Stephen, the progenitor of House Drakul in the King's Court of Dreadford. Of course, when he arrived here in the city, and the court was started, he was just a duke. The king at the time was the betrayer. But he was a champion to the King's Court during the Great Betrayal and defeated the Tower and the former king, earning the crown. Here in Dreadford, the genealogy is much clearer. Francis Stephen had 3 children, Drusilla, Holloway, and my sire, Elsa.
Nick, you said that he was brought into the blood by Percival, an honorable knight. Why does the king condone Holloway's more questionable actions? Or those of the council as well?
It's hard to say, Oliver. Maybe he was never honorable to begin with. Remember that Percival was considered naive. Or maybe the weight of the betrayal was too much to bear and he fell to the dragon. This also could answer why he is retired and the city is ruled by the council.
What do you really think is the truth, Nick?
Nicholas hesitated. He looked around instinctively despite being inside his own home.
I don't like sharing my opinions about it, but I am going to confide something to you. He and I had a distant relationship as he was my grandsire, but Elsa told me about him. And from what I gathered, Francis Stephen was a virtuous man, and Percival wasn't as naive as some thought him to be. For who he is right now, I really can't tell what would make such a big change take place other than the Nephilim. This would also explain why Holloway is so wary of members of House Drakul falling to the dragon.
You said we are descendants from the paladin of House Drakul from the Round Table. So our bloodline has a direct connection to the founders of the Scholomance?
Yes, you're right. I was worried that the legacy of magic arts was fading from our bloodline. Percival, Francis Stephen, and my sire were not mages, so I decided to enroll at the Scholomance, the school our ancestor created. I put into my mind the resolve to become a master at the arts taught there. And now, I'm offering the same to you, Oliver.
Oliver had a thoughtful expression on his face.
Before we delve further into this, there's something that's been on my mind.
Nicholas raised an eyebrow.
What is it, Oliver?
You mentioned earlier that our house was once known as House Tiamat. Why did it change?
Nicholas furrowed his brow. Oliver was evading the question of going to the Scholomance.
Our house has different names in different places.
But why the change from Tiamat to Dracul?
It was a tumultuous time, Oliver. Our house, the House of the Dragon, had fallen from power over Nosferatu society. The glorious past seemed like a distant memory, even for the eldest of our kind. House Agnes had ruled over the Round Table, and since then less and less courts were under a king or queen of our house. At the Tower, House Basilisk had usurped the position of leading house. The House of the Dragon and the House of the Snake had a long-standing feud. It is said that Tiamat reserved for her house the right to rule over Nosferatu and granted to House Basilisk the right to rule over mortals. But as soon as the age of the founders had ended, both houses disrespected this agreement and started to compete with one another for the leadership of both vampire and mortal worlds. At times, this was restricted to conspiring and backstabbing. At others, it escalated into an all-out war of Nosferatu from both houses and their allies and servants. That's when an ancient vampire from our house sought to reverse our decline and reclaim the position of ruling house among the Nosferatu, to the House of the Dragon. He is popularly known as Dracula. His origins are lost to the mists of time. When he became famous, he had lived for centuries.
Dracula. I've heard of him. But how did he achieve such a feat?
Through cunning and manipulation, combined with a fair share of brutality. Dracula planted the seeds for the creation of a chivalric order, the Order of the Dragon. It served as the perfect cover for his vampiric activities. After covering his bases, he assumed the persona of Vlad II. This allowed him to formally join the order and gain legitimacy within its ranks. Later, as Vlad III, also known to history as Vlad the Impaler, he further solidified his influence, instilling fear across the land. This order allowed him to recruit noblemen and warriors. By day, the order engaged in traditional chivalrous activities to avoid mortal suspicion. But by night, it waged war against the rivals of Dracula, the Tower and House Basilisk being the primary target, but not the only ones. Dracula had produced powerful children of his own and was planning to turn influential figures across Europe and the Near East into vampires and familiars. He managed to carve a kingdom for himself and fought to protect and expand it viciously. It is said that he had a personal thirst for mystic knowledge and ancient relics, so he made sure to annex the territory where the Scholomance was located, and he even attended it for the full 7 years.
What about the king's court? Did they support him?
The relationship between Dracula and the court was always tumultuous. He was more or less allied with it, but he also opposed most of the courts that shared borders with his domain. His brutality and endless ambition earned him enemies among several councils. However, his efforts were not in vain. He built a mighty kingdom, bringing power and authority back to the House of the Dragon. He was, and still is, the only vampire to crown himself king of mortals and Nosferatu alike. As the reign of the founders had not lasted forever, neither did Dracula's. In addition to being relentlessly opposed by the Tower, he had attracted some notoriety between vampire hunters. His forces had been plagued by their activities for a while, but then Michael the Brave entered the stage. A prince of Wallachia who uncovered evidence of vampires and of their hidden master, Dracula, manipulating events from the shadows. With the help of a secret group of vampire hunters, the Order of St. George, also known as the Dragon Slayers, Michael the Brave confronted Dracula in a contest of armies and wits. At the Battle of Mirislow, they met in the battlefield and fought a bloody duel. The war with Michael the Brave and the hunters served Dracula a dangerous defeat. not at the hands of Nosferatu, but of mortals. Michael barely escaped their encounter, but for Dracula and his kingdom, this marked the end. Sensing weakness, his vampiric rivals redoubled their efforts. He lost the support of some of his children, and he was betrayed by his closest family members. In a last effort, Dracula sought support of the king's courts all around Europe, but they were averse to the idea of rescuing him. They knew he was on the brink of becoming emperor, a position not held, in more than name alone, since Rome. They offered him enough help to ensure he retired to his castle, now a mere count. Michael the Brave was murdered soon after. He had unwittingly served many Nosferatu's interests, but even Dracula's enemies would not allow a mortal who knew as much as him and who had achieved victory against a powerful vampire to go unpunished. This is when the House of the Dragon took on the name of House Drakul. In the king's court, Dracula's methods were not that well regarded, but the name of the founder had been a thorny subject for a long time. The court had always worked to leave behind the stories of Babylon and welcome the change.
But why does the tower use the name if Dracula was their enemy?
Because many of their great Drakul are Dracula's descendants who switched sides during the war. They wear the name with pride. One of Dracula's children, Andrei Dulka, a fearsome warrior and master of the demonic form, traveled to this city and started the bloodline of House Drakul, which is part of the tower in Dreadford.
Wait a second. You are telling me we have descendants of Dracula's blood in Dreadford?
Unfortunately, yes. Dulka had several children, including Ivan, and most if not all Draculs from the tower are his direct blood descendants. Well, in the king's court, the same could be said about Percival.
What about Dracula? Is he still around?
He was secluded to his castle and the surrounding villages for some centuries. Around the end of the 19th century, he suddenly left on a voyage to London. He has been missing ever since. But now, Oliver, what is your answer to my offer? I believe attending the Scholomance could open up new opportunities for you. What do you say?
Oliver hesitated as he carefully chose his words.
I appreciate your offer, Nick. I really do. But I just can't leave Dreadford right now.
Nicholas looked disappointed.
Oliver, you need to think about the bigger picture. The Scholomance could provide you with valuable knowledge and skills that could benefit you in the long run.
I understand. But my place is here in Dreadford. There is too much going on. Too many unanswered questions.
Well, partner, you don't have to give your definitive answer now. The offer still stands if you change your mind.
And what are your thoughts on the rebellion against the King's Council? Yelena told me you were keeping me in the dark about something.
That's a complicated matter. I believe in the cause, but I have reservations about her methods.
Why's that?
Yelena is reckless, and that is fertile ground for danger. It is my firm conviction that she is putting many at risk with her impulsive actions. Nosferatu that can make a difference, but may be destroyed in collateral damage. You saw firsthand what happened to Amanda. Do you think she is better now than before?
The council is corrupt, Nicholas. I saw it with my own eyes. Something needs to be done.
One of your crewmates was shot with an arrow before he had the time to explain himself at Yelena's request. Her last stunt almost set the city on fire. I agree something needs to be done, but it must be done carefully. It needs to be strategic, designed, and architected. Rushing into things could make matters worse. The council could crush anyone who plays their cards wrong, and the tower is waiting just outside.
Is this why you want me away from the city?
Nicholas was caught by surprise and sighed.
Yes, I wanted to protect you from the potential dangers. I brought you into the blood such a short time ago.
Well, I appreciate your concern, Nick. But instead of hiding away, I want to help take back our city from this corrupt council.
Oliver.
I'm staying, Nick, and I'm joining the rebellion. I stood by the council at the library because I agree a battle would have made matters worse at that time, but either you bring me to the fold or I will be forced to oblige Yelena. This city needs to change, and I will be part of the solution one way or another.
Very well, Oliver. I'll take steps to introduce you to the others.
Thank you, Nick. I won't let you down.
I know you won't. Now go and stay safe.
As he left the house of his sire, Oliver touched the business card in his pocket. Maybe he should have told Nicholas about it. He took it in his hands and looked at the phone number written behind it.
What should I do?
His mind raced with questions and doubt as he walked through the dimly lit exterior of the mansion. No, Nicholas has enough on his plate as it is. Oliver made a decision then and there to uncover the truth on his own, without dragging his sire into the midst of his personal turmoil.
I'll figure it out. I have to.